do not worry so much about that one. Um, so without further ado, I'm going to hand over in just a minute to our speakers. So we have three wonderful speakers today. We have Ollie. So Ollie is a psychotherapist, a facilitator, and a co-founder of a group called Men Acknowledging Patriarchy. And they're working to help people to return to a deep community mindset and helping to connect to themselves and to others, and then looking beyond humanity, so with all life as well. We have Cam. So Cam is a bushcraft instructor, a mentor, and a father, and he works to support men in breaking down the structures of patriarchy within their own minds, promoting playfulness, wholeness, and femininity. And then we have Borage, who is a storyteller and market gardener from West Devon. Has previously worked in supporting people disabled by systems, facilitating self-empowerment and their affirmation to what it means to be human. So what are we going to cover in this session? So what are the myths in our human cultures that we are kind of have entrenched in us? And how can we grow as compassionate, inclusive adults? And alongside that, unpicking these structures of patriarchy within our own lives. So I, for one, I'm enthralled, really. I'm so excited to find out. So I'm going to hand over now to Borage, Cam, and Ollie.
Thanks, Sean. Thanks, everyone. Yeah, welcome to Leaving the Master's House Without Using the Master's Tools. And thanks for that title, Ollie. Yeah, it feels really juicy. Yeah, my name is Borage, and honestly, I'm the predominant thing I'm feeling right now is a lot of love for Cam and Ollie, my dear brothers, for joining me in this endeavor and forcing me to not do it alone. And before we say anything else, there's some words we feel it's important to say first. First thing for me is I acknowledge the violence done to women and girls by men. I am on board with this notion that if I don't speak about it, if I don't act about it, then I am complicit with it. So I don't want to go any further than acknowledging, and obviously it's not a subject right now I can massively open up, but yeah, that acknowledgement. And I just hand on to Ollie if you want to add anything to that.
Thank you, Borage. Yeah, I think I just want to say that um, in no way am I really claiming any kind of expertise. In no way am I claiming to be a good man. In fact, I really want to try and encourage us all to move beyond the idea of good and bad people. As someone who has been socialized within a patriarchal culture, as a male-bodied person, I have caused harm, and that feels really important to acknowledge. That's the starting point, really, for me. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Ollie.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I think yeah, just a bit of for me, like the scale of patriarchy, like this idea that it's like 10,000 years old, and it's been like around most of the globe, and yeah, just the impact, the violence of it on men and women and non-binary and trans people, and yeah, it's part in sort of all these other systems of oppression and sort of white supremacy, and how kind of yeah, how interlinked they are, and the just sort of yeah the bigness of that, and of trying to unpick that and the complexity of that, and another little bit about sort of the sort of complexity of the language as well, that we're going to be kind of using words like man and masculinity, and sort of even within like just the English language, it's like feels like we're working with different sometimes contradictory definitions of the same words. Sometimes masculinity meaning maleness, and otherwise masculinity feeling more like a kind of an attribute or a kind of quality, an energy or an aesthetic that is kind of up for grabs, for people from any gender, experience. So just to name that and can create quite boggy ground and interesting ground.
Thanks, Ken. Yeah, we're using a colonizing language to speak about a decolonizing topic. So that's inherently challenging. It's our intention to struggle with that in front of you. It's my intention not to try and be seen to be right or expert, but just to be seen how I am in this moment, in service of life. May my words be sweet and my transgressions forgiven. And frankly, my prayer is, if my fears, my anxiety will allow me, may I be emotional. I can feel my heart thumping. I can feel all sorts of tension, and it's pushing my energy right up here. You'll see it in my eyebrows. And I want my energy and my attention here. And we've got a shared intention, the three of us, to explore this challenge. So what we're going to do, to give you an idea of the session, or at least what our opening gambit is to have 3 conversations in pairs. The third one of us is going to facilitate the other 2 having a conversation. We think we know what those 3 conversations are going to be about. We think we know where they're going to start. They may not. They may not start there or end there. We've had all sorts of thoughts prior to being here. But our intention over the course of this session is to think less and feel more. And we invite you to do the same. We could so easily get lost in our thoughts, our thinking, our words, and we may do so, and we might need each other's help. So my first invitation to all of you is to listen as much as you can with your bodies, to just feel what's going on. There may be some intellectually titillating topics being chewed over. Well, what does your body feel about that? We had a little chat earlier getting prepared for today, and I remember saying something along the lines of, I'm looking forward to the day when I don't have to be reminded when I'm being asked how I feel, that it's in my body that I feel. Sadly, it's not so easy, and I need that reminder. So we're going to have these 3 conversations, perhaps. And I invite you all to keep typing into the chat what you're feeling. So you might clearly be feeling emotions. You might be feeling what you want to name as sensations. And we may circle back to this. I want to name, just to be very clear, that numbness is a feeling. So you're welcome to put that any way you can describe your feelings. And then at the end, may we get that far, we would like to segue into a kind of what next? What are we taking away? What does this mean? What's happened? Where are we now? Piece at the end. Cam and Ollie, is there anything you want to add to that, to any part of that?
No, I'm happy to dive in.
Okay, then I've got just one more thing I've remembered to say. Often, if I was doing a presentation or a workshop or some training or something, it would be really vital to me not to leave anybody behind. And so I would invite hands up questions along the lines of, I didn't understand that word you just said. If we do that, we could easily spend the rest of our 90 minutes in words and thinking and definitions of terms. And it's my sense that nothing would have happened in this session if we do that, or not a lot would have happened, or only a certain kind of a thing would have happened.
Mm.
So rather than that, I'm going to really welcome confusion and uncertainty. Let's feel confused together. Let's know what that confusion feels like in our bodies. Let that be part of our experience. Let certainty be banished for a moment.
Hey, them.
How
Mm.
are you feeling?
So, yeah, over to you, Cam and Ollie.
Yeah, I'm feeling, I'm feeling excited. Yeah, definitely anxious, definitely like tingly, and my energy's quite up, but I'm feeling really excited.
Good. Me too. And yes, there's sometimes I find it hard to tell whether the butterflies in my stomach are excited ones or absolutely shit scared. So maybe it's a combination of the two. So
Totally.
we in our kind of preparations for this, we were looking for, I don't want to necessarily say a sticking point, but we're calling them cruxes. We're calling them um I guess it's like an interesting meeting point. We all have our own unique positions and feelings about this topic, and we wanted to explore these points of contact and to see if we can do that in a felt way and to see if we can do that avoiding, I guess, some of those stereotypically patriarchal positions of like one person being right and one person being wrong, domination, conflict, just explore
Totally.
how we might meet. And Cam, the kind of crux that we found is actually around, it kind of connects to fear, doesn't it?
Yeah, totally. Yeah. I wanted to start by saying, we were talking about where we were gonna be for these calls, and I've ended up in my kind of room with all my clothes, and it feels quite good, like I've got all my different outfits, got my jujitsu, martial art stuff, my kind of my going out clothes. Yeah, it feels like, yeah, all different parts of me, all the different kind of, yeah, experiences in my life and kind of that I walk around in. And yeah, there's a bit there for me about, um, kind of these words like intersectional sort of feminism that, and kind of identity that I really have resonated with for the last few years. And yeah, acknowledging, that, yeah, most, 90% of my life I kind of walk around and I relate as a kind of as a white, straight, middle class, sort of Southern English man. And, I've also had incredible experiences of exploring those naturally wobbling, yeah, there's wiggle room in all those words, for me. But yeah, there was something we wanted to talk about, about, yeah, what is, yeah, about trying to move away from sort of right and wrong. And I'm sort of trying to do some stuff on Instagram at the moment, and aware of the fear that lives in me of getting things wrong, and of my identity, of my experience, and the weight of the kind of the damage that my people have done and are doing to the world, and that I've done. And don't know, I'm feeling to like pass it over to you, Ollie. I know I'm mid-sentence, but I'm kind of
Into the middle of your sentence. Thank you. Yeah, I guess when I was listening to you then, I was thinking about the connection to shame as well. Um, and I guess to give an example, like a real example of my fear in this kind of context, it would have been speaking at International Women's Day in Bristol recently and wanting to bring a position of some nuance, I think, into a space that was largely female, and the way in which the men's group that I co-facilitate functions from a position that we are all harmed by patriarchy, and we all inadvertently or not perpetuate it as well. And I think the fear that lives in me is the fear of being labeled a bad man, and that polarity that exists within our culture at the moment still very strongly. And you see it in the way that the media often represents harm that is caused by men. They are often presented as lone wolves, they are presented as bad apples. And many of us men rush out to, I guess, in some ways, renew our own claim to goodness by denigrating those bad men. And I think it's so important, and this is why I started today by acknowledging the harm that I've caused as a man who's been socialized within patriarchy. And it's not about collapsing into shame. It's holding space for that complexity of I am a man who has caused harm and I am a man who is trying to do better. But I think that fear of getting it wrong can really get in the way of the kind of courage that we need.
I hear you both speaking about this fear as though it's not here now. I hear you both speaking about it abstractly. And Ollie, you're looking upwards, see it in your brows. Is this fear here now in you? And where is it? How do you, is it here and how do you know it's here?
Yes. Some of those butterflies in my stomach are fearful ones, and actually acknowledging it, speaking it in the same way that speaking shame can release it. I think fear and shame are most powerful when we hide from them, or we hide it inside us. So yes, it's here, but speaking it helps it settle for me.
Oh, yeah, I feel it too. I feel I feel the fear. I noticed, I've kind of changed the screen so I can only see Borage and Ollie, to try and kind of that sense of being watched and being sort of judged and kind of uh observed, and that this has been recorded, and any slip ups will be, you know fear that that they will be preserved for all time. And it's scary.
What does this fear do to you both? Especially in relation to this subject matter, right? What's it doing?
So historically, it has made me want to keep my head below the parapet. It's made me want to hide. It's made me, um, yeah, it's made me want to hide. Um, it doesn't do that anymore
Mm.
because the fear is, it's a fear of patriarchy. It's a fear of domination culture. It's a fear of a culture where if we make mistakes, we are punished or exiled. And so to give in to that fear is to surrender to patriarchal thinking, and to continue to try and to continue to get it wrong and to offer yourself love when you do and to try and offer that to others when they do. To believe that we're all allowed to have a second chance, to believe that um, accountability is only really possible if there is space for some kind of hope or redemption beyond that.
Mm.
I think fear drives me now. Fear is now driving me to speak out, is driving me to be more public, is driving me to get it wrong and trust my intentions and my integrity, and that I will seek to learn when I get it wrong, if we even want to use that language. But that unless we have these dialogues, we are just so stuck. And my deep, deep, deep wish, I spoke to a man recently and I asked him, what happens in your body when you hear the word patriarchy? And he said, I feel like I'm walking into a minefield.
Mm. Yeah, there's a bit there for me. Yeah, it's like sort of, yeah, in this conversation of, yeah, a bit like sort of what is my role in this? Or there's a bit where kind of I see a lot of things, sort of an ecosystem of people, and there's a bit where, yeah, where do I take my rage and sort of fear at men, knowing that for me to bring that into my relationships with men that I'm working with can be very like shaming and can shut down those conversations and that work and those relationships. Not to say that there it can't be accountability in there as well. And yeah, it's important for me, that's important for me, I wouldn't, you know, I think, yeah. Oh yeah, there's an interesting bit there. Part of me is like, it's okay for other people to be, really angry and to have written off men as, um, yeah, they don't want to interact with men anyway anymore. Like, I meet people who, yeah, they don't trust men, and yeah, their experiences, yeah, there's a quite a logical thinking there that it's just not worth it interacting with men anymore. And I really understand that. And yeah, I don't want to judge that as illogical
Mm.
or wrong or not a healthy or a useful or a really valid thing to do. I guess, yeah, I'm sort of interested in this as men, as a man who wants to work with men. Yeah, I want to kind of be aware of that place in me, of that, yeah, there is a real fear of men. There is a real like disgust and sort of, yeah, um, yeah, like parts that really hate men and hate myself. Um, but it feels, yeah, if I'm going to be able to have, you know, productive relationships with men talking about patriarchy, then yeah, it's going to pull me into a kind of, yeah, like a sort of a shaming place with them where it stops that work happening.
Right. And shame is just so, 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 so toxic. And I guess one of the privileges of co-facilitating a men's group is that my perception of men has changed so much because I've had the experience of meeting men in an environment in which there is safety and in which trust has built and in which I can say honestly from my heart that I love this community of men, and I've become a real like advocate for men. And I don't think that's very trendy these days. But I also think it's, oh, I see a hand.
You said love, Ollie.
Yeah.
You said you love these men.
Yeah.
Can you bring them to mind and that love into your body now?
Yeah, and I can feel tears wanting to flow, and
They're really welcome.
I keep telling myself that.
Yeah, I'm telling you it right now, brother. Because the absence of that, what you've been experiencing, is heartbreaking, is it not?
Mm. Just this week, we've been talking about how might we support each other to feel safe enough to cry in front of. And again, it's the, we touched on this before the conversation started in our prep. There's so many bittersweet moments in all of this, and the sweetness of us struggling to find ways to help each other to express, and the deep grief of the fact that that work is necessary just for like such a fundamental expression of emotion that's so healthy and so necessary. Yeah.
Yeah. Something there for me, like, how does it feel to love men? How does it feel to love awful men and to sort of love men in their awfulness, and yeah, love ourselves and acknowledge like the really fucked up shit that we do.
And I don't get into definitions because that's what we really want to avoid. But I do think, is the badness located in us, or is the badness a patriarchal system that teaches us we have to be particular ways? Teaches us all that we have to be particular ways. It was my mum who taught me not to cry. It was my mum who was reinforcing patriarchy, and she did it from a place of love. She was doing the emotional labor of raising me, and she was trying to save me from getting the shit beaten out of, me at school. So I can meet that with love and know that it came from a place of love. But and this is the complexity, and this is the things where I feel the fear of speaking that, the way that we're all so deeply entangled in this, and that badness doesn't lie in men, that patriarchy is harming all of us in different ways. And that's not to avoid taking responsibility, but to recognize that there's no way out of this other than all of us together.
Which feels like a nice statement to maybe end with. And I'll just check in with you both. How are you feeling in your body right now? And invite the participants here as well, everyone else, to if you wish to name in the chat again how you're feeling in your body right now. Not knowing or numbness is totally acceptable answer and a
I,
very welcome answer.
I feel tender.
Yeah, tender and yeah, like sort of, yeah, a bit deeper. Yeah, fear as well. Feeling like, yeah, feeling the fear as well.
Thank you, Cam. Thanks, Ollie.
Thank you.
So we're just taking a minute to feel what we're feeling. Maybe we read what some people are feeling in the chat. Knowing that what we're bringing into the space is touching us and moving us in different ways. And our fear is welcome, and our grief is welcome, and our anger is welcome. All our feelings are welcome. Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, I feel sad. It's grief. That there's a need to talk like this, to do
And
this.
before we it's just landed in me, and I think, what are you feeling? And for me, I think there's this growing realization. It's like, what are your feelings? Not just learning to identify a feeling. It's like so often it is the joy and the grief. It is the bittersweetness. It is the like, thank God we're having this conversation with each other, and I feel so much tenderness and like rage, despair, grief, shame that goes alongside that for the fact that we're here, for the harm that I've caused, for it taking so long to be able to find my voice despite all of the fear, just like the richness of all of those feelings that can be present at once.
So we're going to switch round our roles here. Ollie's going to take over from me as facilitator.
Yeah.
Hey, Cam.
Hi, Borage.
How are you feeling about 2 in a row? You got to go again.
Yeah, I feel good. Yeah, I'm yeah, excited and nervous. How
I
about
would
you?
love to. Yeah, there's actually a sort of slight desperation. I, I, I want to feel more, and I always have that going on. And
Mm.
I'd like to invite you to bring this definition that we recently discussed, that you brought to me, this definition of masculinity, because I want to get to the heart of the matter with you now in a short space of time.
Great. Yeah, a book that's really sort of changed my life is The Will to Change Men, Masculinity and Love by Bell Hooks. And in that there's a bit where she talks about masculinity as a sort of concept that isn't, directly linked to being a man, but as a sort of more abstract concept that is often found in men. And this phrase, masculinity is numbness, and that's, she hasn't found that to be disproved at the time of writing it. And yeah, I find it really interesting to work with that. And I brought it to Borage, and yeah.
Don't like it. Don't like it. I feel tense and uncomfortable in my body in the presence of this. And that may well be an acknowledgement of some truth in it. It may be as a resistance. I want it to not be at all true. There's also the voice in me coming up saying masculinity is so many things. Numbness is in there, but maybe I want to say patriarchy is numbness. And already I now feel frightened that we're going to spend the next 15 minutes in definitions of words. Just, spinning around in that trap.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's an interesting one, like if we try to, yeah, I think it's all good, like if we try to get away from masculinity and men, it's not men, or it's not like maleness is numbness, but this idea that numbness as a very broad attribute is often what we mean when we talk about masculinity as a more kind of abstract thing. And I do a workshop sometimes where it's like I have a load of newspaper cuttings, like trees and mirrors and cars. I get people to put them on a spectrum from kind of masculine to feminine. So these are kind of just objects, and people can pretty quickly sort 100 household objects into ones that feel masculine, ones that feel feminine. I find it quite interesting, that idea of there is already in the culture, and it is really confusing, like there's a sense that masculinity is something that isn't wholly about men. And we can already talk quite well about a feminine man or a masculine woman, or all different spectrums or thereof. But yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, without going too much into definition land, how do we talk about what it is? What are these patterns we see in men, especially if we're moving away from kind of maybe like biological definitions of man, to do with men are created, and patriarchy creates men, and it's a social with yeah, what if they're created, then what is that magic drop that is dropped on a baby that makes them this thing that we know as man?
Right. So one of the positions that I like to come from, it's just shining a particular light, bringing a particular tone or whatever to it, is a mythological perspective. And hearing you there, that last piece you brought, I had this, sense of this old idea of the soul coming from an eternal realm to this mortal, time bounded realm. Does that soul have a gender? It's my understanding from the old stories, the old myths that talk about soul in one word or another, that eternal divine peace that comes to this realm, that it chooses the clothing. So if I was to identify as my eternal divine self, I would say I chose this disguise for this life in order to live out my purpose. So, and one way I could talk about that is I've discovered a purpose for being 52 years old, allegedly white, allegedly middle class, allegedly a man. I mean, these are all labels, right? But all these things, if there's a purpose, and if I acknowledge all those things, then my purpose is to be an ally. Because when the center ground is not doing its work and holding its weight, it is only the marginalized that we can turn to for change. There isn't any other way. It can't come from the center. That's where staying the same comes from.
Mm.
Something about the numbness thing, just going back to your definition, Cam, hearing you speak about that, I immediately thought of whiteness as numbness.
Mm.
You know, which I would now mythologically call whiteness de-ensouling,
Mm.
that it has the action of distancing us from soul
Mm.
and
Yeah.
rooting us all the more in ego identity, therefore.
No, I like it. It resonates with me. I wonder, yeah, what does it look like? What did it look like this morning to be, for us both to wake up as white men and to live de-ensouled, to live numb? What does that feel like or look like?
Great question. I think the invitation is for you to both really stop and just feel into that. Feel into that. And then, hmm.
I hurt every morning when I wake up. It hurts. Coming into life, you could call it waking up or incarnating. Coming back from a dreamy world into this body hurts every single morning when I wake up. And my best understanding of why it hurts is because I'm afraid of the judgments and rejections and abandonments and overwhelms of the day ahead.
Mm.
And it began when I was a little boy who was given homework that he didn't know how to do and was expected to be able to do. And I internalized being expected to be able to do it. And so I wake up every morning imagining before I'm conscious. I mean, as soon as I come to consciousness, I'm in this pain. And my understanding of what's going on is I'm frightened of overwhelm and abandonment from getting things wrong, not being able to do what I'm expected to do. And instead of feeling the emotionality of it and being able to express that, it somatizes and I feel it as pain. So what I'm feeling right now is the grief of that. Sadness and fear that it continues.
Mm.
And that there are so many others having similar experiences.
Mm.
How about you, Cam?
Yeah, I don't know what I feel. I don't know. Maybe it's numbness. Maybe I feel numb. Yeah, I'm going to sort of ponderings, which maybe is an okay place to go. But yeah, I don't feel clear about what I feel about it. But yeah, I feel moved by your tears, Borage, and by your yeah, yeah. There was a bit we spoke about yesterday about yeah, the things that I do or the things that maybe men do to kind of to crack through the numb and or sometimes I was talking to a man the other day saying like he finds life quite boring and he's sort of prodding and doing kind of strange things that don't really make sense to other people, prodding and poking and kind of creating conflict on jumping off bridges into water to kind of to feel something, to get through the boredom. Or I wondered if that was numb, and the ways that I do weird stuff to liven up the kind of numbness.
Do you mean like Duplo toe, Cam?
Yeah, like when I put a little Duplo window on my baby's foot yesterday, and my partner was just like, that was such a man, that was such a dad thing to do. And it was kind of like, yeah, well, she found it a bit uncomfortable, and but it was kind of cute, and we were all laughing and things, but she did find it uncomfortable, my baby, and it was like, yeah, why did I do that? Yeah, that way where
Why did you do it, Cam? Why did you do it? Really?
yeah, well, it was to I wanted me and baby and baby's mother to like have like a moment of connection together over this sort of funny thing, but it was also there was a kind of there was a being okay with it might be slightly uncomfortable for baby that I was okay with to kind of to get that thing that I wanted for us. And my partner, I think that's what maybe that's the bit that my partner felt that was quite a a man thing like that.
Good. I imagine the three of you having a beautiful moment of connection without having to try and be funny and complicit with discomfort on your baby's part to achieve
Mm,
it. And I want to relate to that. We talked about this before. So my extroversion, as I understand it, the way I understand myself in that regard is see me, hear me, or I will believe I'm dying. Deep in my nervous system. When I was a 4.5-month-old fetus, my mum's dad died suddenly. And she was so shocked and so sickened by that shock that she and everyone around her was frightened that she was going to lose me. I suspect I was frightened that I was going to be lost. When I was brought home from the hospital on day 2 of my life, I was put down to sleep in a room on my own. I suspect I found that frightening. My earliest memory is earlier than I have any right to have a memory of, and I was terrified. And my parents were pretty great, frankly. I feel very lucky. But deep in my nervous system is a see me, hear me, or I believe I'm dying. And it's turned me into a comic and a storyteller and an extrovert. And now I want to employ that for in service of life. I want to
Mm.
accept that this is me and use it. If that weren't true, I wouldn't be a storyteller. But it's desperate, in me. It's desperate to be seen, to feel safe.
Mm. Thank you. Oh,
Maybe we can take a moment to check in again into our bodies and to see what's there.
mm. Oh.
I'm really grateful for all the everyone's putting in the chat. And I mean that no matter what you're putting.
Mm.
It, it's partly I'm grateful for the content, but it's partly I'm grateful that you're here and that you're participating in that way. Cam, I'd like us to try and make sure we've got 15 minutes at the end for the what next and bringing others in. So when you facilitate Ollie and I, if you could bring us to an end by 1:15 or not, whatever happens will happen.
Right.
Hey, Ollie.
Hey, how's it going over there?
I want to jump around and shake. I'll be ready for a good dance and shake at the end of this.
Yeah.
I wish we were in the same locale for that.
Yeah, I'm feeling a real sudden surge of self-consciousness, of taking up space, of imposterhood, um, of I think a desire to, yeah, to be able to offer some comfort to you, um, seeing your anguish and wanting to tend to it. I think it's something that as men, speak from the I have struggled to do, both to allow myself to be cared for by other men, to trust that that might be there, and to be able to really give it. So,
Mm.
and that feels like quite a kind of like private thing. So there's something about maybe just acknowledging that publicly.
Thank you.
Hmm.
Yeah, the biggest thing I witness all the time in anything men's work related, I was helping to facilitate a retreat weekend a couple of weekends ago, and the biggest thing I witnessed was love. And men who had never done that sort of thing before, never been on a retreat like that, by the Sunday, by the third day, genuinely feeling that they were loved and that they were loving.
Yeah.
Like 48 hours later, We're loving it. Actually, it's not a notion. It's
Mm.
not a thought. And so there's laughter and there's tears in equal measure.
Mm.
Holy shit. I met you 2 days ago and I definitely love you, that. So just to return some compassion and care, Ollie, I hear your imposter.
Mm.
I want to just say to your idealized self, thank you. Thanks for what you're doing. Thanks for how you look after Ollie.
Mm.
But you, Ollie, are really welcome here, especially in your authentic incompleteness. That's how I love you.
Yeah. Mm.
I think we had something we were going to talk about, but I'm not sure I want to talk about it, Ollie. Something about gender binary isms and masculine principles, spiritual, blah, blah. It's not love, Ollie. I'd like to stick with love right now.
Sure. Yeah, I think that's a good this is something that has really been landing in me just in the last few months, I think, is thinking about allyship, that word, and coming to realize the desperate need for men to learn to love themselves and each other. And Cam and I touched on how easy it is to internalize a sense of badness as a man, shame, the desperate need for us to love ourselves and to love each other alongside, you know, loving women, loving non-binary and trans folk, but that the if we cannot heal our relationship to ourselves and to each other as men, yeah,
I can't love you any more than I love me. It's not
yeah,
really love, it's something else. And I can't be loved by you any more than I love me. And I struggle with this whole notion of self-love as well. Like, I pray for the day that this is a redundant topic. Like, we don't even have to explore or try to understand, or I want to call it a lack of blessing, a lack of knowing that I am welcome as I am. This whole self-love thing for me is because of conditional love.
mm-hmm.
So as a man, I value myself as much as I appear to others to be productive, in a productivity obsessed society.
Productive, successful, to know, yeah, to have power, to achieve. It's making me think about, yeah, I guess there's this intersection of patriarchy and capitalism and the way in which self-care has become this thing that we invest in ourselves as an individual. We optimize ourselves, that self-care is a thing that we do as an individual, and the places in which I'm most able to love myself and love others are when I am in the village. And that's the space in which I have a much clearer sense of who I am. I have a much clearer sense of why I'm here, and I can't stop the love. It takes me back to the fact that that is my default state of being rather than something I need to bring in through self-care, through bring in from the outside in some way. There's like a wellspring of it inside me and I can't turn it off.
Yeah. I want to say fuck self-care and And I want to say that because for me, I associate self-care with the purpose of it being so that I can get back to being productive again.
Hmm.
And the word
I've had
self,
this in,
self. What about collective care?
well, that's it. What if well-being, what if resilience is collective? What if it's not individualized at all? What if it's the pyramid, the hierarchy in all its forms? It's patriarchy, it's whiteness, or whatever that, yeah, it creates this hyper individualism.
And there's this, even that word resilience, it's this idea that we need to get stronger, whether that's individually or collectively. And actually, could we all just break down? Could we all fall apart together? Could we allow things to collapse to clear the way for building something new? And I see this, I feel like this is one of the fundamental challenges of my work as a therapist is everyone is desperately clinging on. Everyone is desperately trying not to fall apart. And I think the first thing that we need to do often is to fall apart. But falling apart alone is terrifying. We might not get back out again. We need someone else to help pull us up out of the well. It's dangerous to fall apart by yourself. It's liberating to fall apart together.
Yeah. The productivity, here's a thought, the productivity obsessed, capitalist, consumerist, hyper individualized, whatever we want to call it, society is centrifugal, as in it spins round at such a high speed, it flings us all outwards, where we're all the more individualized and separated.
Yeah.
What I pray for and what I work for, I call hearth culture, and it's centrifugal. It pulls us in towards the center. In modernity, we label people these days in a seemingly compassionate way as vulnerable, the vulnerable people. And I think, oh, what? The ones we've spun out to the edges of our society to kind of die out there. I want them in the middle. Where do I want Granny when she can barely walk? Sat by the fireside with the big stew, the big pot that she knows the best recipes to, where she can catch my stories, our children's stories. She can tell them stories and make them most nutritious. That's where I want her, in the middle, not the vulnerable and out in a care home. I don't know if we're getting off the topic, but for me, what I'm talking about is centering love. And to bring that mythological perspective in, I'm talking about centering the feminine. I'm talking about the feminine as a spiritual entity, a spiritual principle. It's the feminine that's oppressed, and therefore women are oppressed. The feminine in all of us is oppressed. And by feminine, I'm talking about relationality, embodiment, intuition, creativity. I'm thinking about Cam's exercise, and I'm imagining a tree at this end and a matchbox car at this end, and that one's called masculine and that one's called feminine. Why? Because this one represents life, creation ongoing.
And this is where, very neatly, we find our way back to our crux. Because
I was trying.
because, I want to center myself in an ethics of love, whether that's in my practice, whether that's in my relationships, human relationships, relationship with the more than human world. And my concern is that when we associate love with the feminine, we can inadvertently feed this sense of that the masculine isn't love too, that love isn't everywhere, that these inherent qualities of humanness of life, why do we have to gender them? Why do we have to gender them? Why can the masculine not be as generative and life-giving as the feminine?
It's a great question.
And do we need to gender them at all? Can we just speak of love?
Well, I would certainly be the one to say, yeah, love is the glue that holds the whole cosmos
Mhm.
together. Love is the word I give to all of the glues across the universe.
Mm.
Without love, we are heading in it's entropic death. It's chaos. Love is what holds the cosmos in elegant order. And I guess what I'm curious about is
I'll just suggest an emotion moment.
Mhm.
I feel a tension. There's like a frustration. And initially I thought it was because you cut me off when I was going to say, and it's not. It's because what's underneath that is I want something. I long for something so deeply. And it's more of something that I perceive, I judge that we don't have enough of. And I'm speaking about patriarchy and the oppression of what I consider more feminine principles.
Mhm.
And and I mean that they are, the intellect is privileged and intuition is oppressed, that kind of thing.
And I'm feeling longing. I'm feeling a lot of longing. It's really present in my life at the moment, and I'm trying to not see longing as a problem. I'm trying to see it as something that can be offered up as a beautiful thing. My longing for what isn't, for what hasn't, and I guess it's longing and it's grief and it's love, and they're all wrapped up together for me. And in this moment, it's whenever I really allow myself to check into my body, that's just there. There's this longing.
I'm thinking of this phrase, nobody wins a fight.
Mm.
And I'm feeling this frustration in me. He wants to rattle bars right now.
Mm.
Like he wants to fight for this love.
Mm.
And this is making me think of our title. Fighting for love would be using the master's tools to try and break the master's house.
Two minutes.
Thanks,
And
Cal.
and and I and that ain't gonna work. And it's not what I'm longing for. I'm
Mm.
longing for more embodiment. Self, this body, your body, the earth, embodiment. I'm longing for more relationality. I'm sick of facts, of so-called objective truth. I What is more important to me is not who's right. There's a lot of conversations about AI at the moment that sound an awful lot like conversations about vaccines did. They're very binary and oppositional, and I have my opinion. More importantly than my opinion is relating with you, building good connection with you, understanding you in your difference. I really long for a lot more of that around this.
We're almost at time. Well, we are at time.
you want to bring us home with that, Ollie? Is there anything you want to share?
Yeah, I guess my if I have one hope about what's just unfolded, and I don't know to what degree this, and it's an ongoing hope, I suppose, is that we can find ways of meeting from our difference. And it's something I say in the group all of the time, is a healthy group is one that can hold difference. We can be a we and we can be different. And we can be different without harming each other. And we can be different and love each other in our difference. And it's clunky and it's uncomfortable sometimes, but it's also real. No one is having to pretend to be something that they are not. And we can still be a we. And that's my hope.
Being who we are, being the shape we're in. Thank you, Ollie. So, some of you are still with us. Thank you so much. How do we feel, Cam, Ollie, Sean? Should we just open this up? My question is, what are we leaving with? What do we want to share? What are we with? And I wonder how we might give space primarily to feelings rather than thoughts, maybe intuitions, ways we feel inspired to act in some way, but really speaking from our bodies, maybe more than our intellects, knowing that this is a challenging thing.